Obviously.
You know, obviously.
That's right.
I got Dave here.
I think that
You know, we want to welcome everybody here.
Speaking of that,
So Linda,
you know, we want to welcome everybody here.
Everything all at once?
everything all at once.
It's honestly a sensation. Aliens listen to it.
Kind of.
It's a couple years old now. We've
Okay.
been here about 2 years.
Oh, nice.
It's only been a studio down here for the past
5 months,
less than that, like 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months.
And
Before
where
that,
was
it
the
was like
studio? Where was the studio before?
There was no studio. Well, it was in the dining room.
Okay.
I guess when we were doing Sink, Swim, or Fly with Tyler,
Okay.
we would set up in the dining room, and down here was just strictly poker, dungeon, debauchery, gambling, and and now it's a studio. That's how we paid for the studio, actually.
That's why the poker table's still here.
That's
Yeah,
why the
yeah,
poker table's still here.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to like it too. Most of our guests are like, "Oh, this is cool, a poker table, yeah." And they're like, "Do you use it? Do you gamble? Do you play poker on it?" I'm like, well, you don't buy a poker
Sometimes.
table if you're
Just for
not
aesthetics.
gambling on it frequently enough to use it. Tanya,
Yes.
we are super happy to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm happy that you're doing things you like.
Yeah, it's so fun. This has been a really great passion project for everybody down here. It's something that we've really enjoyed doing and look forward to doing, and I'm really excited that you are here. This is something that I've thought about for a long time, and
Yeah, we tried to schedule a couple of times.
We tried to schedule a couple of times.
Misfired a few
And-
times, but
even before that, like, I told you like a lot of my story after a ceremony, and I feel like it was really rude of me not to ask you about your story.
well,
And now here you are.
yeah. Where do you want me to start?
Well, I know that for the people that don't know, you grew up in the USSR, right?
Yeah.
Where were you born?
So I was born in Volzhsky city, which is like a satellite city for what typically known in Stalingrad. But
Oh, okay.
it's really not, but
It's not Stalingrad?
it's Volgograd.
Volgograd.
Yeah, I mean, they renamed everything when things came up about the
Yeah. Is that like
atrocities and all of that, so.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a satellite city, so you're like in like an Erie-sized city outside of
No, it was
Stalingrad, or-
industrial city. It was bigger than Erie, but I think we lived there for a little bit. My parents originally from the south, the Black Coast, Sochi, and they met in college.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's where I was born. And then the whole country during the Soviet Union were kind of like a Mary Vista program. So you graduate from college and then they send you where they need you.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so my dad was dispatched to Vladimir, and that's a city northeast of Moscow.
Okay.
And that's where I finished high school, and my brothers were born there, and so it's a typical provincial Russian city, bigger than Erie, but nothing to.
How many brothers do you have?
So I have two brothers. I'm the oldest, and I have two brothers. One just retired. They both still in Russia. One is a retired cop, and another one is a snowboard dude. So.
Snowboard, dude. Nice.
Yeah, they are on the opposite spectrum of what would considered to be a societal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but-
What did your dad do? What did your parents do?
So my dad was a detective, was in the police force as well, and you know I have to tell you, it was a surprise to me that my brother went into that line of work because. Growing up, those two were butt-heading with each other.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess you fight each other when you two alike, and maybe
Right. Yeah,
there's
you're
some
too
truth to it.
similar,
So
yeah.
my brother ended up being the same line of work as my dad was.
So when in like middle school or high school or whenever I've learned about the USSR, I was always under the impression that there was not very much freedom in what you got to choose as far as your career path. You were kind of assigned somewhere. Is that something that was accurate or like partially accurate? Or
I wouldn't say there was restriction in terms of which way to go. There was definitely restriction to go into business for yourself.
Okay.
That would be called black market, and that would be called stealing from the government, and you would,
Go to jail.
You would go to jail for that. So as long as it's government job, which everything at the time was a government job. As a matter of fact, if you didn't work, you would go to jail too, and they will make you work.
What
So-
about people that were like disabled and not able to work? Did they just send them to jail?
There were programs, social
Okay,
programs,
okay, yeah.
I mean, you have to, you have, I mean, there were no accessibility, so if you like physically disabled, then it's an issue probably for you to access anything. But my uncle, I had an uncle who had mental health issues, and he would be not considered apt for any regular work, so he was making boxes and things like that. So there were programs like that. There were social programs like that.
So you'd be given like a really low, maybe not like
Like a busy
job
work,
with
like a busy work,
Right.
yeah,
It's not a high
labor,
demanding
But you're
job.
still working. You
Yeah.
still have to do something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was there a drastic change when the Soviet regime ended with like how things operated?
So, you growing up and when you're in it, you don't really see.
Right. That's what you used to.
It's not
that's
unusual.
Your that's your normal.
That's your normal. When I was in high school, I was 16 years old, and my first trip outside of the country was, while it was still a Soviet Union, it was to Paris.
Oh, nice.
And I remember, so I'm 16 years old, I'm in Paris, and
That sounds romantic.
I completely thought that, oh my God, I just died and
Right.
teleported into a different universe. So the materials of the construction of the buildings was different. Everything was different. People looked different, talked different. Food was different. Yeah. So it was my first time where it was really shocking to be elsewhere, and I thought, oh my God, things are slightly nicer outside of the Soviet Union.
So going back a little bit, we talked about, was there like, we're probably going to jump around a lot, but I'm curious about the black market
Yeah.
businesses back then. When you were in high school, were there people that would do stuff like that, like maybe selling
Yeah.
blankets? I don't know what they would sell. Blankets, food, clothes?
There would be market for food, and I can't really tell you whether it was a black market or it was somewhat authorized, because you can go to the market like a farmer's market. It would be
Sure.
like a farmer's market, and the police didn't seem to be after those people, so I would imagine that it was somewhat sanctioned. However, some of the things, such as like we had shortage of everything. Any consumer goods, from toilet paper to jeans. You name it, we didn't have it. So, I think for the most part, it wasn't really an open black market. You need to know someone.
That would tell you where it's going to be.
Yes, and you need to go to an apartment, or someone will come to you, and it's typically was hush hush. For the most part, it was either something that people would make themselves or would bring from abroad for those lucky individuals that get to go abroad, because Iron Curtain was real. Most people couldn't travel outside or inside the country, and select few that were able to go. Most likely held the position of the government that were in the upper echelon.
So they had some influence and some money.
Yeah,
and
the
stuff
reason,
like that.
and the other areas that really breach boundaries and borders usually relate to arts and sports. So the way that I got out of the country for the first time while the Iron Curtain was in existence is through dance. So arts took me to Paris, and my life was never the same. So.
I remember your one friend was a soccer player too that was in town.
Yeah. So they traveled. I think they traveled to United States. They traveled all over the world. So yeah.
Cool. And do you think that there was a lot of corruption within these black markets as far as like bribes to the police possibly to allow them to go on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the way it was this system, you know. There was a shadow system that was just as strong as what was an official.
Portrayed,
Yeah. So all true. Bribes were part of life. You wouldn't even get an appointment to a specialist at the hospital unless you slip a chocolate to a girl at the register
to make
office
appointments,
to make that happen. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, not cool. That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was gonna stop you, but
that's not cool. So you're in Paris, you're 16, and that's like your realization moment, it seems like, that things were...
Well, that wasn't even a realization point. I was just on cloud 9, and I just was walking for as long as we were there. Like, I think we were there for a couple of weeks, and every day I was at awe, couldn't believe I was there.
So much culture and art,
yes,
beauty.
Couldn't believe that, I was in Paris. I couldn't believe that I was outside of USSR, so I remember thinking, as soon as they close the door to the airplane, I'm like, then I'm safe. I'm really going.
Bring me back.
That I'm really going because they could just pick you out and say, "Nope,
yeah,
you're
sorry,
out. Yep, you're
going
out."
back home.
Yeah,
I feel like Paris is a great place to make that introduction into the rest of the world. I mean, it's a romanticized. It might be one of the most romanticized places in the whole entire world.
I would think so.
Even,
I mean,
from here too, people like Paris. It's just like like they're
you
like
think romance when you think Paris.
like Paris or
Yeah.
Venice or like it's on a very short list of the most beautiful places to
for
go.
sure. Yeah, you can say that I fell in love in Western life in Paris.
Absolutely.
You can definitely say that.
And do you feel like at that point you're like, okay, I need to get out?
No,
or figure a way.
At that point you're 16, you're still in high school, and and your passport is with someone else's because they collect it and then they give it to you as you go through customs and border patrol, and then they all collect it, and
who was collecting it? Like a chaperone or something like that?
We had the whole thing. We had the debrief before going.
Oh, wow.
This is the anthem of France. Make sure you know it. This is the way to respond to these questions. Learn it.
Wow,
so they were like telling you like, no, we're not talking about any of the shortages or any of the bad things that are going on in Russia right now. Everything is beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
What about
Did you have to pray to communist gods? That's kind of a joke, but like...
We probably not pray, but make sure to say like, yes, sir.
Right. When you got back from Paris, did you have to do something similar? Like, did they interview you about like, what did you do? What did you say? Who did you see?
I think we were supervised
the whole time, right?
pretty intensely.
They knew what was happening the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
And then you came back and finished. Did you graduate when you were 18?
So we graduated a little earlier. So we graduated at 17, and then I went to Sochi, where my parents originally from, and I.
From what I understand of Sochi, it's a pretty cool place.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best.
You got
it's
beaches
a little,
and
it's a little
mountains and-
provincial in that sense. But yeah, the weather, the gathering of people, it's when it's developed a lot for the 2014 Olympics that dumped a bunch of money and made a lot of infrastructure changes and really beautified it and built it out. And luckily, they're still using it for various purposes. They turned the mountain cluster into like one place where you can go and gamble. So they're making big bucks there. They're using the stadiums that they built out on the shore for various events. There is a new soccer team there.
Cool.
So yeah. But it's I think as far as Russia goes, it's one of the
places I might want to visit if I go to Russia.
yeah, definitely must have to go.
Cool.
So before we get to college, though, because I know you said that by the time you were in college, it was Russia. It was no longer USSR, right?
So I finished, I graduated from high school. It was still Soviet Union, but when I was in college, the transition took place from...
Okay. I'm just like,
Soviet
I'm
Union
interested
to Russia.
in what was the biggest, like, everyday change that you saw? Was there any, or was it pretty much the same?
Well, it's a political change, and it's a change from one country to another. So whatever the laws and constitution that stood before was no longer in effect, so to say. And I mean, it's Japanese have a saying, may you live in the times of change.
Yeah.
And we did live in the times of change. It was hard. Everything crumbled. We had shortages worsen. We had rations. We had blackouts. They would turn electricity off. They would turn hot water off to conserve money and whatnot. To distribute food that they would, give us vouchers. You couldn't purchase anything without having a voucher. So you come into the store, you have money, but unless you have a voucher, you can't buy anything. So
people because from like the Western standpoint, it's like Ronald Reagan knocking down the wall and everyone's cheering and it's like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. But people weren't necessarily, were they
celebrating in the
celebrating,
streets?
happy that it was a change, or was it just kind of?
Well, you celebrate a change, not knowing what's coming.
Yeah.
So when the whole coup took place and then the transition happened, my friend and I were, trying to chase the action. So we went to Moscow, but it was too late. And then we went to St. Petersburg, but it was too late. And on the main streets, like on the main squares, people were cheering. There were concerts everywhere. Independent bands were putting on performances, and I mean it seems like a fun time, but at some point people go home and then they have to go to a store and feed their families and kids, and
It's not very
it
fun
was
anymore.
tough. It was tough. And then the most profound and of course how is it done? You change from planned economy to a market economy, and how do you go about sharing all the wealth, right? Because supposedly it's people wealth, so the government wealth is people's wealth.
Right.
So there was a plan. So what they've done is they calculated how many people, what's the national wealth of the country, then they kind of divided it all, gave you a ticket and say, okay, this $10,000, that's yours, you can invest it in anything. So, and the smart people, they sold their tickets on the market, on the black market, and where people were buying, because at the time you also, to purchase any kind of asset that would, like capital assets, you would have to pay with those printed tickets, right? So, and those people who had access to real money would buy those printed tickets on a black market. So they would sell.
So real money, we talking American dollars, jewelry, gold?
No, we're still
Russian?
talking rubles. Yes,
Okay.
Russian rubles.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I wasn't sure. I mean,
It's real
It's
money
like
for
two
Russians. Rubles are real. It may be funny money to you, but it's real money.
I
to
just
Russians.
wasn't sure if there were two forms of currency.
Right.
I mean, I guess there were two forms of currency. There were these vouchers and there were rubles.
Yeah, at the time, I think under Soviet Union, owning foreign currency was a crime.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could
Wow.
go to jail for that.
So the people with money were using their rubles to buy vouchers, so that way they can exchange those for whatever it is they're trying to buy. That
Yeah,
was
their
a
assets.
former government asset or former.
And then they also established mutual funds where they would ask people to bring all their vouchers for investment, and then they would announce that they bankrupted, but it was all a big scheme. So people were collecting.
They were just stealing that money.
Yeah, they were just stealing that money.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Very dangerous time
very dangerous time.
financially.
Financially, crime was at its top. It was crazy. We call it crazy 90s. Yeah.
And your dad was a detective?
Yeah,
So-
at the time. I think he was very close to retirement age at that point, and I think, I think he shortly after he retired. Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
So as far as like you at 17, 18 years old, how did this affect your future? Like, were you already like planning to go to college or university at that time?
I was in college. I was studying economics. It was a new hot, thing to study.
Yeah,
because
I mean, you got a market now.
now we have a marketing economy. Yeah, so there were a lot of schools that opened the next best thing, which was marketing economics, and so I studied that, management and economics. Took me 5 years because that's what our programs were.
Yeah.
They were 5 years. We were graduating with master equivalency compared to
Yeah.
U.S. education, and then so at my last year, I was working and I was studying at the same time. My last year, I met someone who said, "Let's get out of here."
Cool.
And so my first, I guess, outside of Russia experience was in Turkey. Yeah, so I lived in Turkey for about a year and a half.
Did you travel there legally, or did you like flee?
Legally, yeah, all legally. Turkey and Russia are buddies, so they have very lenient
Immigration or
tourism
borders? Yeah,
exchange
sure.
program. Yeah, so you don't need a visa. You just cross and they stamp your passport, and you're good for however long
You want to stay?
Yep.
Cool.
And so I lived in Turkey for about a year and a half, and then came to U.S. to go to school.
Okay.
Came to Gannon. Yeah, so here in Pennsylvania ended up being my landing spot, and a spot there where I made my life, had kids, and made a life for myself. So
How did you choose Gannon?
So, one of the professors who was teaching at Gannon was from Turkey, and so he was also international advisor. And so, when we were looking for schools, we called him to find out of the list of 10 schools that we wanted to go, which one is best to go to. And Gannon was not on the list. But he was a great international student advisor, a great salesman. Next thing I know, we're in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Cool.
How do we compare to Paris? Was it a similar feeling? Like, I haven't made it yet.
Well, we came here in August, so
It was nice.
It was very nice. It was very nice. But within a week, you figure out that it's a small provincial town, and lucky us, we had something to do, like go to school and study, but then again, Presqu'Isle, that's amazing, and having being from Russia and being a snow bunny, the fact
Right.
that
You're used to it.
there is peak and peak to
Holiday
keep you occupied.
Valley,
Holiday
Seven
Valley,
Springs.
Seven Springs
yeah.
is close,
So yeah.
Awesome.
Was it, because I'm sure that the culture of Turkey and the culture of the United States is completely different. Like, was it a culture shock to come to the United States, or?
Well, yes, of course. And the culture shock was primarily realizing that what you see in Hollywood movies is not what.
So what was your impression of the United States before you came here? Like, what did you, when somebody said
Hollywood,
United States,
they sell you
okay.
Hollywood. That's
Yeah.
that's what you think about the United States when you think of movies, Hollywood movies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but even Los Angeles, you see one Los Angeles on the screen, and then when you go there, you say, that's
Right.
it?
Yeah, right.
Is this it? So, I mean, yeah, there is a little disappointing, little disappointments here and
Yeah, if you're
there.
expecting Hollywood and you
Yeah.
show up
Right.
in Erie, it's a little disappointing.
But to some extent, it's a relief. You don't. It's
You don't have to have
It's a
those
simple
super high
life. It's
expectations.
really a simple life, and there is nothing wrong with that. Simple life is good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, right. I feel like it's kind of like that with any country, though. Like, if you've never lived there or been there, like the biggest cities or the biggest cultural landmarks, you automatically, put the whole identity of that
Agree.
country,
Agree.
So, like, if you weren't from America, it's like New York City, Dallas, and LA, and there's nothing else, like.
Right.
So when you were in Turkey, what did you do there for that year and a half? Did you just work? Was it fun? Did you like Turkey?
So I studied the language and travel and and was just experiencing life in another country. So it was a lot of
Can
fun.
you speak Russian, Turkish, and English?
And French?
And
French, I studied French, but did very poorly. French is this hard language.
I don't know how they spell anything.
I studied Turkish, so I speak a little bit, mostly, service, household.
Right.
What would you like?
Basic
Yeah, basic stuff. Yeah.
Did you study English before you came to the United States then? Like,
So English, I studied English. It's a program that was in Soviet Union from, I don't know from how long. I mean, at least I went through it.
Yeah.
They start us on the foreign language at 4th grade,
okay.
and then they carried that through high school, and then when I was at the university, we had to study 2 foreign languages. So one was English and another was French, and I did very poorly in French. As a matter of fact, my professor, in order to pass me, she had me swear that I will never confess that I took French from her. I said, I promise. Lucky for me, it was pass or fail. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes. I'm gonna write pass on your.
Right. You did your best.
Yeah, just don't tell anyone that you took it from me.
That's interesting because, like, I know you took Spanish at Barron too, and I remember our professors at Penn State were like, as I'm like struggling through Spanish, they're like, it's not as hard as English,
Yeah.
so just.
But I guess when
Spanish
you're
was the bane
starting
of my
it
existence.
so young in 4th grade, it probably didn't seem as difficult since you started learning it so young.
Well, I still had, when I came here, because the language you're learning in school and the language that you
Right.
live are completely different languages. So when I came, it was not a cultural shock, but there was a language shock for sure. I remember walking. So we lived on Cranberry, and I was walking how many blocks to Gannon campus, and there is this black kid coming towards me, and he's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, I almost peed my pants. I'm like, "Holy shit! What does this mean?"
Right. Because you're used to like, hello, good day to you.
Yeah,
How are you today?
yeah. There is so many quirks. There's so many, expressions that you don't really learn in school.
Right.
So it took me about a year or 2 years to really break into it. But there were times I wouldn't even want to go to the store because people wouldn't understand what I was saying, not because I was using different words
Right.
and different way of speaking. So
Probably learned British English too, and not like.
who knows?
US.
I was learning from Russian-speaking person.
Right,
I
yeah.
don't know. So yeah, yes.
British English. Well,
English.
there's a difference. I know there's a difference between our Spanish teachers. That one was from like Puerto Rico, and one
Right.
was from or spoke like Spain Spanish.
Spain,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
use
yeah.
Vosotros.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, right now I'm studying Spanish, but I'm taking classes from a Costa Rican.
Right.
So they pronounce some things different and
Right.
they use different phrases. It's real. It's
Yeah,
real.
it is.
It's
When
sure.
I lived in Miami for a little bit, I had an Argentinian roommate, and our neighbors were Puerto Rican, and she's like, sometimes I can't understand what he's saying
Yeah.
because like Puerto Rican Spanish and Argentinian Spanish are so different. He's like, she's like,
Yeah,
sometimes
for
I have a
sure.
hard time.
I mean, even born and raised, lived in Erie, America, my whole life. Whatever, learned English. That's the only language that I know, through and through. And I had one of my best friends. Her sister and her came up from Texarkana, Texas, and like her sister was like straight from there, and she had such a thick Southern accent. I could not understand what she was saying. We live in the same country, you
Right,
know. And I'm
yeah,
like,
it's-
repeat yourself, please. Like, I don't know what you're saying.
For sure, for sure.
Were you getting your PhD when you went to Gannon?
So I did MBA degree first, and then PhD came later.
So they didn't recognize your 5 years of Russian.
Partially it was my choice. First of all, there were no, the only PhD program I think was psych degree at Gannon, and my background wasn't conducive to that. So, and I wanted to go to school so I can get integrated a little bit better.
Sure.
And, things you study in Russia and the program in US, so, completely different things.
Right.
So I had really good time going through Gannon's program. And as a matter of fact, in the class, I would understand, as long as it's not cultural reference. I had the org behavior class. Oh my God. My professor, all he was making his cases on, it was all on cultural reference. And everything went over my head, and I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back and forth on my classmates. I'm
And you
like,
came with
impossible.
your partner at the time.
Yes, at the time.
Okay.
Yep.
And I always, whenever we had like a foreign exchange student, well, not foreign exchange student, but an exchange student from somewhere, I never, ever understood how they could go to school at a college level and have such awful English. And not like, just like really broken English, thick accent. I'm like, how could I write a paper if I could barely speak a language?
Well, I'm telling you, the professor I spoke about, organizational behavior professor, he wrote on my first paper. So my first paper, right? He writes, get an editor.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Get an editor. And then what was the other thing he said?
Did they have like a what's it called? Like a learning support area at Gannon?
Yeah, like a tutor.
They
like a tutoring
did,
center?
but you don't know how to access anything. So,
Right,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, you just struggle.
Just push through
Yeah,
it.
you just push through it. My first marketing class, I got I got an F on midterms, and then I'm like, holy shit, and I'm looking around.
Was that the first F you ever got?
That's the first F I ever got. It was totally like a reality check. I'm like,
Right.
okay, I got to do something about it. So, and I had a friend my new friend in class, and she was horrible with math. And math is math. Math is universal.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
you can transfer it. And I found out that I thought I was always like average, mediocre in math. When I got to the United States, I was a star student. I was a star student in math. I'm like, well, thank God, at least some things are going
Right,
for me.
yeah.
So we partnered up. I would help her through statistics, through any kind of math-related courses, and she would just pull me along with all the
writing papers.
language courses. So yeah, so if it wouldn't be for her, I wouldn't probably be graduating.
You still talk to her?
Yes.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Yep. Yep. Still talk to her. Yep.
Nice.
Hey Danielle, that's to you.
Thank you, Danielle. Were you working at all at that time?
My first internship, I got my first internship, I think I was on my second year of graduate school. So, and it was with the local company, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I have to say, the first time like I went to work, that's when I felt that, okay, now this not as uncomfortable of being here as otherwise. So you kind of plugged into a workforce, you're going to school, you have friends.
Right.
So a couple of years down the road, you know, you start feeling a little bit normal, because when you come, you definitely, you know, don't belong here. You
Right.
know that you're faking everything and you're just smiling just to get through the
Right.
day. But yeah, it was painful. But you know, on my worst day, I would like, refuse to go to the store. I'm like, no, I'm not going. I'd rather starve.
Right.
Did you ever feel like you faced any like discrimination?
People look at you like
There were
you're
a
crazy.
few. There were a few. Yeah. You know, people take advantage not just because you were foreign or a female or young, primarily young and stupid. That's why they take advantage of
Sure,
you.
you're an easy target.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether you're foreign or female
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, if I knew then what I know now, I would file a couple of lawsuits. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So your degree at Gannon, you went again for economics?
They have a degree in organizational learning and leadership. So that's the PhD degree that I have.
Okay.
Yep. And that was a lot of fun. I was the second cohort, so they just opened up the program,
Oh,
and
cool.
I was the second cohort going through it. So yeah.
So, as somebody who's not from this area, I am personally interested in how did you become involved in the like Lakota tribes and
Okay.
traditions
Yeah, where
around
does that
here?
come
Yeah,
into
how,
this?
where does
Like, I
that
didn't
come
mention
into the
that.
story?
Tanya is also a fucking badass.
She is.
She
I've
is a
witnessed
fucking
it.
badass. Sun dancer, fucking real cool shit.
Yeah.
How did that all come into the mix?
As you know, a friend of mine and I will always say, how do we all come to a lodge on our hands and knees? You know, when your life crumbles, that was my story. You know, life-changing events, things happen. You know, and your life. I think I found myself in 2014 in a situation when everything I believed to be true was no longer true. And I was looking for new lever to hold on to.
Right.
So I went many directions. You know, I looked into Buddhism, I looked into yoga, I looked into many, many different things. And then in 2005, so long before that, I was part of the community theater, Director Circle Theater, and we were doing a play about this women, and one of my colleague who was from Venezuela, she said, there is a sweat lodge this weekend, do you want to come? And I'm like, yes, I want to come, but I have young children. I'm like, I can't come. So I was invited in 2005, and I always wanted to go, but it never happened because I was working, I was raising kids, I was going to school, life was just busy. And then when in 2014, when I found myself really looking for new lens to look through the world, I remembered her. So I reached out to her. I said, I'm ready for that lodge that you mentioned in 2005.
Yeah.
Here we are in 2014, right? I mean,
Is it somebody I know?
Or
they still go to lodges?
I
around here
don't
or
think
move?
so. She's since passed away. She was from
okay.
Venezuela, and so she said that there are no lodges in Erie anymore, but there is a lodge in Thunder Springs.
Oh, nice.
So that's how I got to Centerville first, and then once I
All
found
over the place,
and
yeah.
and then once I found myself in a sweat lodge, my life changed. I really.
It's powerful stuff.
It was
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was so powerful, and I'm so grateful for this way of life, and really, really appreciate. Lakota people that kept on keeping on,
Right.
and the rest of us that follow. So
But before you came to that realization, like, did you have any form of spirituality, like growing up or anything?
No. I came. In Soviet Union, I mean, what they would say, religion is opium for masses, right?
Right,
So, materialism, real materialism. Whatever you see, that's what is. What you can't see does not exist. And so I grew up with that notion, and I was hardcore.
Atheist.
Atheist, maybe. Yes, I would say atheist in early, growing up in early ages, young adult, and then slowly would be becoming agnostic, and then, until I found myself on hands and knees, spirituality did not enter my realm.
Right.
But you have to crack your heart, your head, in order for that to happen sometimes.
I feel like that happens a lot. You know what I mean? When you're really desperate to find something out there to give you that purpose or that meaning or whatever. Also, I feel like a long time before I started to actually accept that there might be some sort of higher power or God or Great Spirit, Kashla, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
I started to see coincidences happening. Or
And
things that
the
were-
funny thing is, I would, I grew up in a society that purposefully drove you away from that way of thinking, right? So when I did finally came to accepting that there is something bigger than us, and there is a spiritual path that can guide you to a better way of life than otherwise you can find it through your own stumblings. And I'm like, damn, why nobody told me before?
Right.
Right. That this was out here.
Yeah, because you can carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, and it's pretty heavy,
Yeah.
And if you can share it with Tankashla or whatnot, then things
Get a lot
things
easier.
are looking up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not feeling like you have to control every single outcome and completely self-reliant.
Yeah,
on
and
all
it's
those
not good
things.
for your mental health, right?
Not at all.
God.
Absolutely not.
God. For sure.
And now you're a crazy fucking sun dancer.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Right.
Who knew,
It
right?
didn't take long. I feel like 7 years is pretty quick.
8 years, yeah.
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 And you were sun dancing before now, obviously, so probably less than that. I feel like you were always a sun dancer since I knew you.
Well, then I just
Maybe not.
finished my 4th year last summer. So, yeah.
Time for a break?
I think I like Sundance. I really do. So the question is, where do I go? Which Sundance?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many now.
There are
It's
so
awesome.
many, and we're so lucky that we have so many.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was creeping on your face on different stuff, just like snooping around.
Okay. What did you find out?
That you used to be a marathon runner too, or still are a marathon runner.
I did triathlons, yeah.
You did triathlons.
Wow.
So that's biking, swimming, and running. Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, and there is a group of women that are open water swimmers. So every summer we get out there in the Lake Erie and swim our hearts out every morning. That allows you that if every time there is a flat lake,
Yeah.
there is like a mass text.
Like,
It's
hey, we're
flat.
going.
Come out.
Nice.
So, and yeah, we're there. So great thing for the mental health.
Do you
too.
do any of the polar plunges with Javed or anything like that?
I do my own polar plunges, not organized, but, every now and every time I am in running in the woods and run through a creek, I'll take a dip.
Yeah,
Yep.
nice. I just got into that a couple years ago with Jay. He originally got me driving out to Cleveland to do that stuff, and now there's a few of us that do it around here periodically a couple times a
Okay.
year.
Do you guys ever go to Cleveland and do what they do over there? No?
We do. I did it first, but I haven't been back there in a while. At first,
Okay.
before I started to get some people who wanted to do it with me around here, I would drive out to Cleveland and hang out with Jay. I tried to get Jay to come on the show too, but he won't do it. He's scared. I don't know why he doesn't want to do it. It's fine.
Yeah, Jay's a private person.
Yeah. But I love doing that lately. That's my one of my new favorite. It gives me the same feeling that lodges do in a lot of ways. It
I
just
agree.
shuts everything off,
I agree.
and you're left there with yourself and just being alive for a little bit, and builds that tolerance for other things that are uncomfortable in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree.
Things don't seem so bad when I'm standing in a frozen river or
Yeah, ice water.
1,000 degrees.
Ice water and the will to survive really takes over.
Right.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yep.
You're an impressive lady.
Well, thank you so much.
And I'm super grateful that you came out here.
I was just going to say you are impressive. My second launch that I ever went to, you were sitting next to me, and I was so glad that it was you sitting next to me. I fed off of your strengths. I was like, I'm so glad Tania's sitting next to me right
Thank
now.
you.
I need this.
I feel like that's super Russian too.
Well,
Like that strong, like toughness.
So I have to tell you, I went. I went to South Dakota for the past 3 years, and I was supporting a Sundance in South Dakota. There is a Russian woman there who is married to Lakota Hayoka, and she is a tough cookie. You think I'm a tough cookie? Oh my God, she is a true Russian that is so impressive. It's. Natasha, shout out to you.
Russia is like I feel like a tough place. Like culturally and like has been individually for like so long that it's just a part of the culture that, when things are tough, you keep going, because you're Russian and that's what you do. You
when
keep,
things are tough, you get tougher.
Yeah.
We all do that. That's human qualities.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like Russia
For
just
sure.
has that reputation, though. Like,
Yeah,
the
and I think it's all
reputation.
Dr. Zhivago stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. And for those of you guys that don't know, Hayoka is a sacred clown, so she probably has to be tough to deal with.
Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed hearing about what it was like in
Yeah.
USSR.
Well, thank you for your interest. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
and
so
good
much for
luck.
coming.
Well, I hope Jay will come. Maybe he'll listen to
maybe
this
he'll listen to
podcast.
this one.
Yeah,
He'll be
and
like,
say,
maybe I
hey,
can
Jay, it's your turn.
Right. Well, I've been trying to get some of our other friends that do lodges with us to come out here, and so far the only one is Josh. But we had an awesome time with Josh.
Oh,
too.
fabulous.
We had a good time, yeah.
Oh,
a
that's
couple
great.
weeks ago. But
That's
hopefully you're the first one of many more.
Yeah.
Oh, Doc Neal's
Yeah,
coming
Doc
too.
is coming.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fabulous. Oh, that's good. Well, I'm sure he's going to be a hoot.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Lots of good things coming up for you guys in December. All of our intergalactic, interplanetary, local, and international listeners now.
From at least 4 countries.
From at least 4 countries,
Yeah,
according
right.
to Spotify.
Spotify, yeah.
Now maybe 5 if any of your friends and you said all your family's still over there too, right?
Yeah.
So you're the only one who broke away.
Yes, and they still all huddle together. So they are really stuck together. I was the most adventurous one.
No.
Yeah.
Do you go back out there to visit them a lot?
Last time I was there, it was 2020, just before the world shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I flew in and out for my high school reunion.
Oh, cool.
Stealth mode. Like, in and out.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you still have. Oh shoot! I never asked you about Ukraine. I was about to end this out without saying anything about that.
And it out. I mean, it's a tragedy what's going on. And
Do you have a lot of family that or know people that have been affected by it directly?
Not direct. Well, I have a few people here that I'm friends with that affected directly, and it's terrible what's going on. And you know, Ukraine is in the worst situation possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you hold any resentment towards America and NATO, like coming in and establishing the current regime that's in there?
They made a few mistakes. If they wouldn't, you know, if they wouldn't say no to NATO, Russia tried to become NATO team player, right? They said no.
tried,
They said no, and then they invited Ukraine to NATO, and that was a slap in the face to Russia. I mean, they know that it's all intentional. It's unfortunate that they do it that way. I don't know why. I don't know what's the drive.
Goal?
What's the drive behind all of that? You know, because a peaceful status quo is better than a war.
For sure, for everybody.
For everybody. So unless, you know, the spending needs to be
Right.
happening, you know.
There's probably some sort of advantages too that are out there for certain parties that are involved.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
none of them are probably very good or actually worth the damage or the things that are occurring to the Ukrainian people or even the Russian people that are out there, you know,
I mean, for the whole,
probably against their will
I mean,
for the most part.
this is a reflection on the whole humanity. I mean, we're in the 21st century, and this is where we're at, right?
Right.
We learn nothing from our history lessons, really. It's not logical, first of all, and it's I'm sure driven by some greed or hunger for power or whatever those demons are.
Well, I do believe that. I'd have to double check, but I'm almost positive that the Department of Defense over here gets the most amount of money spent into it. So
Sure.
those kind of things definitely.
I'm sure there's a lot of oil, and you know, Ukraine's like the breadbasket of Europe, from what I understand. You know, all the things that are produced out there and grown on farms, and the things that are happening now. I feel like it's really a tragedy for a lot. It's going to make things a lot more difficult for a lot of people all around that area,
And-
not just.
And you know, there is some train of thought that it's, you know, short game, but there is a long game too. So this is not the end of it. So whatever.
No,
Right.
I don't think that this is going to be over anytime soon. It
Yeah.
seems like this is more of a proxy war between the United States and Russia. So
Well, that's been the narrative since at least World War II, just East versus West, and
Right.
like force feeding that to people to get them to try to hate the other side.
Right. And I feel like it's really naive for a lot of people to suggest that this would be a quick encounter when none of the war efforts ever have been like oh, we're just going to send these people here for a couple months and we'll get out, you know what I mean? Like, look at Iraq, look at Afghanistan, look at Vietnam, look at any
Korea.
you know, foreign war, to suggest that this is just going to be like a quick over and done, you know, wash your hands, everybody leaves and it's back to normal is really just not smart.
Yeah.
It's not going to go
Yeah,
that
my
way.
heart goes out to everyone who's impacted, like, severely. So
Yeah.
no words.
Pray for peace.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Well, now I think we covered everything.
yeah.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you so
again.
much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.
Okay.
Good night.
Yep.
Good
Thank
night,
you everybody for
everyone.
listening.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.